Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome distinguished guests visiting and from local senior colleagues, fellow colleagues. Thank you for coming to this Hong Kong Taiwan Trainee Network Forum. My name is Ying Cheng. A little bit of background, I studied, graduated, and worked in London for the past 20 years before coming back to Hong Kong around 5 years ago. And now currently working in Princess Margaret Hospital as a trainee. So today I'm going to talk about multiple casualty incident or mass casualty incident from the Hong Kong perspective. Although I've been working or living in London for so many years, I still count Hong Kong as my home, and it has always been. So I'm just going to give an example of an MCI in Hong Kong. On the 22nd of February 2018, just last year, around Chinese New Year time, dinner time, a double-decker bus turned on its side when turning a corner. It was a proper MCI for us, a very serious traffic accident causing 19 deaths and 63 were injured. I think many of us in Hong Kong will recall. So a definition of disaster in terms of WHO, a disaster is an occurrence disrupting the normal condition of existence and causing a level of suffering that exceeds the capacity of adjustment of the affected community. In Hong Kong, definition is slightly different, but it's also when the demand for life-saving and emergency services exceed the normal capacity of a single receiving hospital and or an A&E hospital. So similarly, for an MCI in Hong Kong, in terms of the hospital authority, a definition for MCI is whenever about 8 patients or more are involved in a single accident or incident, or at a fire when it's upgraded to level number 3 and first casualty confirmed. So Hong Kong SAR government has our own emergency response system. It's a 3-tier system. Tier 1 is at the first level where the emergency services is under their own commands. Tier 2 is when we step up and the Security Bureau duty officer will be made aware of the incident, which may need to be made aware of by to the government secretariat and different departments. Tier 3 is at its highest in the event of a major incident involving widespread threat to life and properties and security, where extensive government emergency operations are required. So this is a very complicated looking flowchart for the Hong Kong SAR emergency response system, stepping up from Tier 1 to Tier 3 with the Chief Executive right on the top. We really, as emergency doctors, I think we just really need to know about the emergency response right at the front line. We have the GFS, Government Flying Service, the Marine Department, the Fire Service Department, and the Hong Kong Police Force. We stand here where HA, Hospital Authority is, and obviously there's DH, and also many government departments in here, Highway Department, Social Worker Department, Auxiliary Medical Services, and so on and so on. So it really involves many government departments, more than you'll ever think of. So in terms of the Hong Kong SAR ERS, Emergency Response System, so we start with the rescue phase. Obviously, when the incident happened, we focus on the rescue of life and property and containment of the situation. And then the recovery phase, and then eventually the restoration phase, where you reconstruct the infrastructure, restore the emotional, social, and economic, physical well-being of the community. So for the hospital response, in terms of from the hospital authority, HA has tallied the Hong Kong SAR government with a 3-tier emergency response system. Different levels of command and response will be activated based on the risk assessment. So hospital authority has their own hospital authority civil disaster contingency plan, Because as Hong Kong, we're very, very lucky that we seldom get natural disaster, but we do, most of our MCI do come from civil disaster. So today I'm just going to focus a little bit more about civil disaster, where we see a bit more often. But the hospital authority also has contingency plans for natural disasters. So in terms of HA response system, it's very, very similar to the government response system. We start with prevention, preparedness, response, and then recovery. So in terms of disaster preparedness, we carry out a lot of regular trainings, tabletop exercises, simulations, drills, to prepare for when disasters do strike. So this is a tabletop exercise involving several departments coordinating and communicating with each other. This is a decontamination drill or simulation, and this happens round the clock, around the year. This is so that when the disaster do strike, a systematic approach to optimize effective communication and resource management. Response. So again, we come back to this horrific and tragic traffic accident last year. So what happened that day? So around after dinner time, this bus was around near Sha Tin race course, and the horse race just finished. Everyone was leaving, getting their bus to go home, and this is where the accident happened at Tai Po Road. It was running about 60 kilometers per hour and was turning a corner. So this is a credit from South China Morning Post. Basically, where it happened was here. This is a typical Hong Kong double-decker bus where it can sit 47 people on the upper deck, a lower deck of 25 people, and 26 people standing at the lower deck. So it can really take a lot of people. This is just a bird's eye view for people who don't know Hong Kong very well, especially for our Taiwan visitors. So this is the sea on the north side. This is Tai Po Road. This is about where the accident and bus turned over. Where it happened is actually surrounded by local residencies, bit of a suburbs for Hong Kong perspective already. So it's not right smack bang in the city centre. So how did we manage this disaster? The basic principle always applies. All casualties should be brought to the nearest appropriate hospital as soon as possible. Casualties are conveyed by ambulances of the Fire Service Department according to the MCR preset quota, which I will talk a little bit about later. The casualty with more severe conditions have higher priorities in treatment and transfers. If deemed necessary, the Fire Service Department or the Hospital Authority Head Office Duty Officer will call for a dispatch of the Medical Control Officer, MCO, and the First Emergency Medical Team, EMT. Only deemed necessary, so they do not always go out, but if they call for, we will send one out. If disaster happens at a catchment area of an acute hospital, it will then be responsible for the dispatch of the EMT, and another hospital from the same region network will be responsible for the dispatch of the MCO, the Medical Control Officer, or the second EMT. This is so that we don't call all the doctors from the same hospital to go out on scene, and that would to disable that one hospital. So MCO from one hospital and an EMT from another. So on scene, at field, this is what will happen. If an emergency medical team will be dispatched on scene, this is what they will be expected to do. The team will be composed of one emergency doctor, one nursing officer, and 2 registered nurse. Their role is to provide triage and emergency treatment prior to transfer of patients, such as airway management, pain relief, treatment of shock, or even certification of death. This is a common card that we commonly use for the EMT if at the incident of an MCI. So when you use a red card, the patient has top priority and very unstable. yellow for the next level, still unstable, but relatively no life-threatening, and then the very well, minor injuries, and very stable, and obviously the dead. Hong Kong also has the Mobile Casualty Treatment Center. If it's needed on the day, it will be called to scene. It is basically a small operating theatre that any emergency treatment that can be used or done at scene will be used. So another very important medical personnel that we should know of is the medical control officer. This doctor is usually senior and very experienced, usually associate consultant or above of the A&E of the supporting hospital, and will be the site commander and the liaison officer. He or she will be expected to arrive as soon as possible and assume the commander of the emergency medical team. It maintains a close liaison with all concerning parties, especially the fire service department, the police, and the auxiliary medical services. And it's also expected to communicate at a regular interval with the hospital authority head office and receiving hospital to initiate diversions and hospital through discussion. So the MCO really does an evacuation plan on scene. It's not expected to do any emergency medical treatment, but is there to coordinate and to communicate. So this is a map of Hong Kong and a general idea of clusters of Hong Kong. We're made out of 7 clusters of hospitals in Hong Kong, mainly by geographical reason. New Territory East, this is where the accident happened. And then there's New Territory West, Kowloon Central, Kowloon West, and so on. And then there's the island side. So each cluster is made out of acute hospital with tertiary and secondary care. And for this particular accident, which happened around here, it happened at the New Territory East clusters. It's made out of 7 hospitals, but only 3 of them have acute A&E settings. And Prince of Wales Hospital is the only tertiary hospital and a trauma centre. Okay, Prince of Wales Hospital again is the university affiliated hospital, so not only a trauma centre and tertiary hospital. The other 2 hospitals have their own A&Es, but they're secondary hospitals. So the dispatch of patients, as I said earlier, HA has a preset quotas. So in order not to overload any one hospital too soon, too quickly, the idea is not to send all your very ill patients to your closest hospital at one time. So Hong Kong has 8 large-scale hospitals, namely the tertiary hospitals. They're able to take 4 reds, 4 red casualties, and then 12 yellow and greens. We have 7 hospitals which are secondary care. They can take 1 red case, and then subsequently 12 yellow and green patients. And then we have 2 other hospitals who are not able to take any red casualties, but able to take 12 yellow and greens. So this brings to a total of 243 patients. If all the patients needed acute hospital care in Hong Kong, they will be dispatched to every one of them if needed. Why is it 2 plus 2 here? The question is because we do not want to send 4 patients right away, the first 4 red cases straight to the tertiary or the closest hospital immediately, but we would like to give them time to absorb. So hence we would recommend 2 reds first, and then the next 2 probably to the next tertiary hospital, and then maybe 30 minutes later, an hour later, they can take another 2 reds until they hit 4. As mirrored to what Dr. Chen said from Taiwan, communication is key in any MCI management. Fire Service Department will assign Ambulance Incident Officer, the AIO, who will perform an on-site evaluation and then report to the Fire Service Communication Center. So we immediately set up a communication center for this ongoing communication so that we don't get too many messages to too many people. We will only want the right message to the correct center, to the correct people. A&E and then communicate with the communication center or the head office directly for the most up-to-date situation. The head office will immediate command of the HA, hospital authority response, for any major incident. He or she should communicate with different parties at regular interval and is also expected to liaise with the fire service and receiving hospital for diversions of casualty if the MCO was not dispatched or has not arrived on scene. So that we have someone specifically communicating about the incident to the hospital and on scene. So this is what happened that day. Around 6:15 was when the accident happened. By 6:22, the fire service department and hospital authority informed the incident to Prince of Wales about the incident. By 18:27, fire services reported 2 reds, 12 yellow, and green that will be transferred to Prince of Wales. By 6:30, fire services reported 15 casualties are trapped and requested the first EMT, emergency medical team, were dispatched. Within 15 minutes, the EMT has arrived, and by 18:52, HAHO already updated there's 23 red cases, and 2 reds will be first transferred to Prince of Wales. By 18:53, first case arrived. Half an hour later, second red case, and then the third case. By 2010, this is 2 hours later after the incident, EMT was already dismissed. 4th case arrived at Prince of Wales, 8:15. A 5th case was transferred from the Nethersoul District Hospital. I know we said that we only expect 4 cases from one hospital, however, this is a transfer from a district hospital and was not directly sent from scene. At 20:45, emergency medical team was again dispatched back to scene for any trapped patients. And by 22:03, 4 hours after the incident, all casualties were sent to hospital, and 23:04, disasters call was stand down. And then by 02:11, help desk was also stepped down. So this was a situational report given at 21:34. So it's a handwritten form given by the Fire Service Department or MCO to report how many cases has been sent so far. So you can see those highlighted in pink are the cluster hospital, so the hospitals who were closest to the scene of injury or accident. Prince of Wales being the tertiary hospital and closest on scene took 16 cases that day. And the other hospitals also had to take cases just to not overload all your local hospitals. Okay, so Princess Margaret Hospital, where I was working, we received 3 red cases that day because we were the next closest in terms of trauma center. Okay, disaster hospital. Do I have a little bit more time? 5 minutes maybe. Just on the hospital level, briefly, because we just mentioned about on scene. Once disaster activated, apart from A&E, the hospital will also be alerted about the MCI. So there are many departments that will be alerted at all levels, including operating theatre, blood bank, ICU, radiologist, surgical units. Doctors must be made aware because they will have a surge of patients. And obviously, all chief of services, all the bosses will be made aware on that day. Prince of Wales, so every hospital has their own disaster contingency plan. So not only the HA contingency plan, but they have their own hospital contingency plan. For Prince of Wales, they have grade 0, 1, 2, and 3. For this incident in particular, this is a grade 2 and 3 disaster plan. So at hospital level, what we're concerned about, you have a sudden surge of demand with the patient influx of mainly space, staff, and stuff. So space means beds, number of beds are going to be at risk. Staff, doctors, supporting staff, nurses, you will need an increase of, and also stuff. Stuff is okay, it's money you can buy, equipment, medication, ventilators, and so on. So what happened on the day for space? So ICU responses, they immediately go around to the ICU, try and figure out any patients that could be stepped down or discharged from the ICU to free up some more beds in case of trauma cases that require that. And 2 were stepped down to HDU, a high dependency unit, and a general ward. And they already realized that their plan B, C and D, anesthetists are great at plan B, C and Ds, they have the post-anesthetic care units where they can keep ventilators, and also if needed, there are other cluster hospital ICU, or if necessary, cross-cluster hospitals. This is the hospital communication flowchart for Prince of Wales. In case of grade 2 and 3 disaster happens, basically everyone is called. Everyone is alerted in every level, okay? Even the radiographer, the mortuary attendant, okay? So anyone you can think of will be made aware of the incident. And also for deployment of nurses. I'm not clicking it fast, I'm sorry. Okay, so on that day we had WhatsApp call as well, communication again with all the bosses saying who's back, who's there, who's on scene, who will come back. Okay, so when things happen, people are very, very kind-hearted. Everyone will put in their time. Obviously, at last year, we used WhatsApp, but now obviously we have a hospital authority chat, which is a WhatsApp version for hospital authority, more appropriate for this incident as such. Recovery. Okay, we're nearly there. Sorry. Recovery is all about psychological services providing for not just the patient and the relative, but also for HA staff who've been through the incident. That is also very important. And then more meetings, okay? Debriefings, improving the existing contingency plan. Obviously, sometimes you think there must be something. When you run a contingency plan according to the incident, that's when you notice when there's flaws. Okay, this is a time to review and to improve any existing plan. So looking into the present and future, anticipation, continuous preparation is essential. Okay, there's a constant threat wherever you can be, and all we can do is to prepare and anticipate. Just a food for thought, maybe like Taiwan, Singapore, very tight urban populated places will think about underground space development. Okay, so more and more now that we're going underground, because we're running out of space overground, actually when disasters do happen, do we have to think about confined space, subterranean medicine, and so on. So probably more training in terms of that. So sorry for the long speech and talk. It's a very, very large topic. I hope I haven't made you more confused than before I started. Basically, it's challenging, it's complicated, it's always going to be chaotic on the day. With regular training, drills, and simulation, hopefully with a systematic approach, we'll make this run as smoothly as possible. Thank you.